Hi, my name is Hartley Peavey. I'd like to share one of the most exciting projects that we've ever done here at Peavey with you, and that is the way that the Wolfgang guitar came about and how we make it here at Peavey Electronics and our new 127,000 square foot factory devoted to the production of electric guitars and drums. Here you see the front and side view of the building. This was a rather interesting project, and we worked on this for about 3 years. We selected this facility because it was in a very interesting part of the world, a part of the world that had a lot of people that had woodworking experience, and we took a small pre-existing building and added quite a bit of improvements to it, and hopefully you'll see the commitment that we've made to guitar manufacture right here in the USA. Of course, the first step in any wood enterprise, be it making furniture, guitars, or whatever, is the acquisition and selection of good wood. One of the things that we have to be extremely careful about here at Peavey is the selection process, because as you know, all trees have limbs, and wherever you have a limb, there's a knothole. Obviously, not many people are fond of having guitars with knotholes in them, so we have to select material so that we don't have knotholes. We have to select it so that the grain is as it should be, and this all has to be done in a humidity controlled area, and that's what you see here, part of our wood incoming storage. We check the moisture content of the wood as it comes in from all over the USA, and in some cases from other nations. For instance, rosewood, mahogany, and those kinds of woods are typically not grown in the United States, but here we're checking some maple for moisture content as it comes in off the road. We look at the quilted maple, the bird's eye maple, and the figured woods that we get. Please understand that very few of the trees actually have this figured quality about them, and this quilted maple, bird's eye maple, and so-called figured woods are becoming increasingly scarce, difficult to get, and need I say, expensive. Definitely so, and it's getting increasingly harder to get, so we have to inspect very closely to be sure that our purchasing department received what we bought and paid for. Here's an example of what I say, what I'm talking about here. You can see that the figure in this piece of wood is quite nice. One of the things that's unfortunate about the manufacture of guitars is that every piece of wood is slightly different. The figure you see in front of you, when we cut into it, it may change its character totally. So while it looks good initially, after the machining process is done, we may achieve a different look. But the best we can do is select very carefully, which is exactly what you see in process here. From the material storage warehouse that you just looked at, we go in and we start cutting out the rough blanks. Here's one of the processes that we still use manual methods, and that is to cut out the rough fingerboard blank, and also we use in this process to cut out imperfections that we find in the lumber. From the blanking process, we go into a situation where we be sure that the vertical dimension of the lumber is as it should be. This machine that you're looking at right here is used for that purpose, and it actually faces off the top and bottom of the wood blank simultaneously. The reason that we're so careful to have the blanks exactly the same thickness is because in the process of making the guitar bodies, we have to laminate, and if all the wood pieces are not the same dimensions, then we'll have a very uneven process, because as you see, we're stacking up numerous bodies and pressing them together under heat and pressure to cure the adhesive, and that's what's going on here. Here you see a very unique operation that Peavey pioneered back in the 1970s regarding guitar production. We were the first company in the world to utilize computer numeric control machines to produce precision guitar bodies from the blanks, as you see here. While most of our competitors till that point had used simple hand tools, band saws, or what's called pin routers, which is a manual type of router, Peavey was the very first to use computer numerical control machines to produce body blanks. We utilized a unique system wherein we had 6 workstations and a 3-station computer numerical control router, or CNC router. This was a very interesting machine because it not only had movement in the X and Y axis, but also in the vertical or Z axis. With this technique, we could not only carve the body in a very precise way, we could also create an arch top all on the same machine and all with the same operator. This was an immensely more efficient method than had ever been used before. While our competitors laughed and said it couldn't be done, the interesting thing is today almost every company in the world that is producing guitars in quantity utilizes such machinery. Interestingly, Peavey was the first to do it back in 1975, just as we were first to use what's called a copy lathe to make necks. Prior to that, necks had been made on some very crude equipment by hand methods, bandsaws, sanding belts, etc., etc. We utilized a unique way to make necks, which many of our competitors are just now discovering even today. Interestingly enough, we have omitted several of the workstations for clarity. We've not shown the machines in full operation because in those cases you see sawdust which obscure the area. We've used essentially one workstation to illustrate the process. In practice, we have 6 workstations with the machine constantly in motion while the operator is loading or offloading the finished workpiece or the blanks themselves. The machine itself is constantly in motion. That's why we have a 3-headed machine utilizing 6 vacuum chucks to hold the blanks. So we have 6 locations with the machine moving from one side to the other while the other side is either being loaded or offloaded. By utilizing these kinds of production techniques, Peavey can eliminate a lot of the slop inherent in hand operations as used by our competitors. Because we make the bodies more precisely, the finished instrument will be a more precise instrument. We also do it much more efficiently, and this is again one of the reasons why Peavey does it a different way, and we think a better way. So computer numerical control has paved the way for making a better instrument, and Peavey was first back in the mid-70s. We've been in continuous production of guitars and basses since the mid-70s, and interestingly, this has been done under the same ownership and management since that time. It's very critical that we have very precise dimensions, and while the machines themselves are very precise, the fact of the matter is we have to check the work of the machine to be sure that something hasn't changed, and this is part of our in-process quality control. And here we see an operator measuring the depth of the pocket, not only for the neck, but the pickups for the tremolo mechanism, etc., etc. It's very important that these dimensions be in some direct correlation with each other for the instrument to work properly. While we do use extensive automation in producing guitars, I think you will find it interesting and hopefully informative that there's still a great deal of hand labor. While there's little doubt that we can produce precision parts, guitar parts, bass parts, etc., on production machinery, the fact of the matter is the difference between a pile of computer-processed parts and an actual instrument is a great deal of hand labor, some of which you see illustrated here. The pockets themselves are recessed from the top, and because of that in the production process, it often we often have wood chips and things like that that get lodged in there, and what you see here with an operator is going in and removing some of those by hand so that when we get to the final sanding, priming, and painting process, these chips will not become dislodged and get stuck in the paint or otherwise cause some problem in the production process. More handwork you see, while a lot of people would like to have you believe that at Peavey we only use machines to build guitars, as hopefully we're illustrating to you, such is not the case in total. We do use extensive mechanization, automation, etc., etc. In fact, we've always been pioneers in that, but the point being is there's a lot of caring handwork, as hopefully you'll be able to see in the following few pictures. Here again, contour sanding. The Wolfgang is a very complex guitar in terms of its overall shape. Even when we define it mathematically on a computer and cut it out with a computer-controlled machine, we have to be sure that there are no particles left in there that might drop out in later processes that would cause a reject of the instrument. Since the Wolfgang is a premium instrument, a limited production instrument, we have to be very sure that each and every one of them is as perfect as is humanly possible. Edge sanding of the body, sanding the contours of the top, again, is a very skill-oriented operation, and you can see that happening here in the factory. Sorting and inspecting neck blanks is very important because the neck, of course, is one of the main functional pieces of the guitar. Interestingly enough, the feel of the guitar, the function of the guitar is very much associated with the neck. The strings, when tuned up to concert pitch, exert a considerable level of tension on the neck. So the neck is not only something that must feel good, it also must be an integral structural member of the guitar, and therefore we must spend a great deal of time selecting the pieces of wood that constitute the neck blank. Obviously, each tree is different, and that's why so much human judgment is necessary when selecting the materials. And throughout these snapshots of our Leaksville facility, you'll see that there's quite a lot of inspection going on. One of the reasons for that is each and every tree, like each and every person, is an individual. And when we get the wood in, we have to be sure that it meets the specifications that we've designed into the Wolfgang. Again, more measuring processes. Behind you see various and sundry production machines, custom-made sanding equipment, custom-made gauging machines, and here you see an old-fashioned micrometer being used to be sure that the heel thickness is what it should be. This has been specified by Ed Van Halen as well as our design engineers, and this is vital that each and every neck be gauged so that the end result is as good as we can possibly do it. Again, you see more gauging and final hand sanding of neck blanks. This is a very, very important thing, especially on the edge of the frets, to be sure that the neck itself, not only at the front but also at the back, at the nut end, at the heel end, it meets Ed's very exacting specifications. Again, here's another custom machine that actually takes the fingerboard radius, which is the working part of the guitar, and we have to be sure that it's exactly right. And the way we do that is on some precision-made machinery that utilize both electronic and air controls called pneumatic controls, and this is what you see depicted in this particular picture. Checking the fingerboard radius, again, this is a simple visual check, and although it is not as precise as later checks will be, it's a simple visual check to be sure that everything is okay before it goes on the conveyor and flows down the line. Inspecting the fret seating is very important. As you know, fretting is one of the most critical operations in the manufacture of any guitar, be it electric or acoustic, and what we're doing here is taking the necks after they come off the automatic fretting machine and being sure that that all the frets are seated properly. If they're not, they are reseated here on a small manual press, and then it's passed on to a conveyor line and goes down the line. The crowning of the frets, as depicted here, is a very critical operation because as the player moves his hand up and down the neck, it's absolutely vital that there are no sharp burrs or edges that might be detrimental to a person's playing, and that unfortunately is something that we have not been able to automate, but is still a hand job and requires significant judgment and human feel. And this is the operation that you see taking place here. Once the frets are dressed, they are buffed off so that any remaining rough edges will be burnished off so that the overall feel will be smooth as the player moves his hands up and down the neck. There are many unique things about the Wolfgang, and one of those is that we brand each and every one, not a simple decal as normal production guitars are equipped with. This one is actually burned in. This is to avoid unauthorized copies, and this is one of the many ways that Peavey has taken the extra step to be sure that the Wolfgang is one of the most spectacular production, or more correctly, limited production guitars that's ever been made. Here again is a close-up. You can see Ed's signature. It's actually burned into the wood, not simply stamped on or applied by a cheap decal. One of the interesting features of the Wolfgang is what most people call a scoop. And some people have asked us how that scoop is actually applied, and here you see a relatively simple machine. This is a reciprocating drum sander, and the unique scoop on the Wolfgang peg head is accomplished through the use of this machine. The sanding spindle that you see here reciprocates in the vertical manner. In other words, it's going up and down while rotating, and that creates the unique scoop that you see on the peg head of the Wolfgang guitar. Many, many years ago, Peavey pioneered the use of ultraviolet finishing systems, wherein instead of using solvent-based or air-dry type painting systems, we utilize a system where you do not have solvents and other volatile chemical spirits evaporating off the paint finish. What happens with the ultraviolet finishing system is the guitars are painted, and then it goes into a special oven with high-intensity ultraviolet lamps. These lamps have a high level of radiation and a considerable amount of heat, and as the wet guitar bodies flow on a conveyor through this system, they pass by these high-intensity ultraviolet or UV lamps, and when the guitar body or neck comes out, the finish is entirely dry. It's very warm to the touch, but by instantaneous drying, as we experience with ultraviolet, we have a lot less problems with dust, debris, and foreign objects getting into and sticking to the finish. The simple fact is when the guitar bodies and necks come out of the UV ovens, they are in fact dry and can be handled immediately, as opposed to being set around in racks, air drying sometimes for days at a time, as was done by ourselves and others in the past. This new Leaksville facility has a rather extensive system of conveyors and ovens and spraying booths, as they're called in the factory, for finishing, and here are some more coats being applied. As you see, typically we will apply multiple coats to guitars, especially to the Wolfgang, which has one of the best finishes available on a production or semi-production guitar, we believe, of any instrument that's ever been produced. More work with the ultraviolet. This is a very expensive process to initiate, but to produce the type of finishes that people are expecting and demanding today in premium instruments, this is the only way that you can really achieve that. Binding and detailing, unfortunately, is still a hand operation, more or less. And what you see here are some of our skilled operators that are dressing off the binding on Wolfgang bodies. Again, more spraying on a conveyor, which isn't necessarily visible in this particular thing, but you can see that there are holes or openings in the side of our spray booths where the conveyor takes the body down for succeeding operations as it flows through the line. Once the bodies are taken off the holding fixtures that support this body or neck or whatever the case may be through the conveyor, they're taken off and put on holders like you see here. These bodies are awaiting either dressing of the binding or a final inspection. Most of the guitars here are waiting for dressing of the binding, and I think you can see here that some of the guitars have the binding that have already been dressed, and other bodies are painted, but the binding has not been taken care of just yet. Buffing is a very important operation at Peavey, and we have a huge buffing operation. As you can see, this is still a hand job because there's a great deal of human judgment necessary on when the finish of the Wolfgang is properly buffed. Unfortunately, this is one of the most time-consuming operations that we or any other guitar maker has, and is an area that is quite critical to the final finish of the instrument. Unlike most of our competitors, Peavey manufactures its own pickups in a very interesting way. This particular pickup was designed in conjunction with Ed Van Halen to his exacting tonal requirements, and like most Peavey pickups, it's designed and wound on precision computer equipment. However, the termination and the final assembly, again, is by hand, as illustrated here. This is one of our winding machines with a very precise computer-controlled rotation speed and tension, and this produces several pickups at one time. Obviously, a neck, even a highly figured neck as shown here, has to have the machine heads or tuning machines applied. That's what's going on in this picture. The tremolo bridge is applied using precision made pivot bolts, and you can see the finished body. This particular one is the off-white body, and the pivot bolts that you see being put in here will be the fulcrum points for the Floyd Rose licensed tremolo that will later become an integral part of this Wolfgang body. Here's a shot of necks waiting for final assembly. We earlier saw how the scoop was machined into the neck, and you can see here that here's one small batch of Wolfgang necks about ready to go into final assembly. One of the most critical operations in the guitar making process is the intonation and checkout. Every guitar we build goes through this process, and the Wolfgang itself goes through several processes to be sure that it matches Ed's exacting specifications. Lots of time and lots of effort goes into this, and we're told by most of our dealers that almost every Wolfgang that comes into their shop is perfectly set up and perfectly in tune, even after being shipped for thousands and thousands of miles, and in some cases across oceans and even by air freight. So this is something that we're extremely proud of. Adjusting the bridge height, setting the intonation, adjusting the pickups, all of these things go together to make the instrument what it is. Well, folks, here's what it's all about. Here are Wolfgangs rolling off the final assembly line. As we go down the line, this represents an awful lot of work, not only by our factory staff, but also design of our guitar designers here at Peavey, a lot of work by the maestro, Ed Van Halen himself. There's a lot of unique things about this instrument, the way it's shaped, the body, the feel, even the balance of the guitar. Of course, the D-tuner. Overall, this is a very ergonomically designed guitar. It's a guitar designed for a purpose, and that purpose was to suit the discerning taste of one of the most discriminating individuals that I've ever had the opportunity to work for, that being Ed Van Halen himself. This guitar is truly a work of art. It is not a reinvention of the past. Granted, we, like most guitar makers, have learned from the past. It is an effort for us to build on the past and take guitar making to a new level. We at Peavey have done that. Interestingly enough, people forget that at Peavey, we've been in business under the same ownership and management for 32 years. That's over 3 decades of learning, growing, learning how to do things a better way, albeit sometimes a different way. In 1975, as stated before, Peavey initiated the use of computer numerical control machines to make guitars. Now this has become the universal way to make guitars in quantity, because you can replicate what you design in. The Wolfgang guitar has been totally digitized, and this means that the dimensions have been described mathematically to the computers, and the computers control very precisely the cutting heads, and that's why throughout the process, the in-step quality control, the in-process quality control rather, the final assembly results in a pile of Wolfgangs to be shipped out the door. This is truly a unique instrument. And by the way, Peavey is a very unique company, designed in a very special way. At Peavey, we have no misters. In 32 years of operation, Peavey has never once laid people off for lack of work. Peavey's a caring kind of company, a company that believes in doing it a different way. We have factories throughout the United States, mostly located in the southern part of the United States, as well as one factory in Corby, England. We are a different kind of company, and should your requirements be for music and sound equipment, please try Peavey. You won't be sorry you did. Truly, it's time you heard. It's time you heard that Peavey is a different kind of company, and we believe a better company. We make better products a better way. Peavey is a different company, and we believe that it is truly the time you heard. Thanks for taking the tour, and come back to see us